I live in Berlin. Who of you have been to Berlin? Berlin? It's a fun city, yeah? So, I've been living in Berlin since around 2006. And in 2006, Berlin had nothing. Berlin was a place where you go to if you'd like being unemployed because it was really cheap. There was a great music scene, a great club scene, but there was nothing. And you can tell that if you look at the tech world about the amount of investments that were going into Berlin at that time, because you're talking about tens of millions. Well, now if you look at the first 6 months of this year alone, Berlin has had $1.4 billion of venture capital money go into it. What is interesting is that the arguments that made Berlin great were always there then. Cheap place, tech talent, international city. What happened is the attitude of a small number of entrepreneurs who did very, very well, and that basically sparked entire ecosystems. I think what we're seeing here from the investor side is the possibility about sort of their interest in the investments here. But our next speaker then from Bartek is going to be talking about his experience in the Polish ecosystem as well. I'd like us all to welcome on stage Bartek. Many thanks.
Guys, don't leave. I'm a good speaker. You're going to enjoy this. First of all, thanks for having me here. I think the event is great. I'm really surprised by the scale of the event and the scope of the people you got here. And I've been a part of the session since this morning, and many people have been talking about great things and great ideas and things which are going to happen in upcoming 5-10 years. Unfortunately, I have to take you a little bit down to earth because my presentation will be very practical. First of all, let me introduce myself. My name is Bartek Gola. I live exactly in the middle between Berlin and Warsaw. It's a city called Poznań. It's exactly the same distance to Warsaw and to Berlin. So I got a perspective of both of these cities. I run a venture capital firm called SpeedUp. We got 4 funds already. Till this year, we've been focusing on investing in Polish companies only, even though we attracted some international founders from Central and Eastern Europe to come to Poland and to incorporate their company in Poland. We are now in the process of raising another fund, and we'll be ready to invest within the region since January next year. Of course, we are scouting the company right away. That's why I'm here. And if I may just make a few comments about the panel, of course, very, very briefly. I think there are 2 things which really are important. Rafał from Campus Warsaw talked about his evaluation that this region produces more engineers than the whole US. We tend to forget it. The problem we have here that we sold them raw. I mean, we make them employees of the big international companies, of outsourcing centers, and we believe that this is good for them. No, it's not. It's like selling raw materials unprocessed, and this is the issue of the region. So we are not able to transform those technical talents into creating valuable companies. That's the major issue. Of course, you may ask yourself why it's happening. I think one of the reasons is an access to a venture capital. I cannot, even though here you've got few examples of bootstrapping companies, these are examples, not the rules. So if you think about every successful ecosystem in the world, starting from Silicon Valley through Berlin up to Tel Aviv and of course London and of course South Korea, they would never exist without strong venture capital, because this is the only way of financing the innovation. What I want you to pay attention to today is the fact that the venture capital is investment firm, and we invest others people's money. So you have to understand how we work, how we operate, if you want to, as a potential entrepreneurs, successfully raise the money and give us the chance to give them back to our investors, because every time they come back to the market. So the more money we give back to the investors, the more of them is coming back to the market, and more crazy idea can be financed. So let me start with a few words how to approach an investor. And it's, of course, not Polish perspective, it's not Central European perspective, it's a global perspective. Every reasonable investor will tell you that. First of all, you should ask yourself a fundamental question: do I really need an investor? And because very often people make mistakes, like when you create a company, people treat finding an investor as a goal. It's only a tool. This is exactly my last slide. So investor is a tool which helps you to scale your company and boost your speed of doing that, and of course enables you to hire best people, enable you to buy things which you couldn't afford by yourself. But investor has also had downsides. I mean, you lose the part of your company in the future when you will be successful. You will be selling your company. You will be selling only, I don't know, 50% of that instead of 100% of that. So you have to ask yourself a fundamental question: is it worth having an investor? And there is a guy, Paul Graham. Everybody on this here knows the guy. He's the founder of Y Combinator, and he came up with the fantastic idea of equity equation. And he says, if you think about finding the investor, you should ask yourself a very simple question. And the equation looks very complicated. It's very easy. It's good for me because I look very wise. Until you understand it, that it's that easy. The N is the chunk of the company you are giving away to investor. So let's assume that you are giving 10% of the company to an early stage investor, which means that the equation is 1 divided by 0.9, which means I think it's 1.11 or something. So what it means that you have to think whether giving that you need to improve your company performance by 11% in order to make it valuable for you. But if you give away 25% of the company and you divide 1 by 0.75, the score is different because it's 36%, 1.36, which means that your company has to be more efficient, more profitable by 36%. It's extremely difficult to judge whether, well, these exact percents, but you have to understand one thing: the more you give to investor, the more profit it needs to give to your company in the future when the exit comes, when the value is being created. So it's not about having a good salary and being comfortable. It's about the value that can be created by investor and increasing the value of your company. Otherwise, it doesn't have any sense for you. Not for investor, for you. For your equity, for your future. This is your company. And believe me, the moment the company is great and people are starting to buy, seeking to buy your company, or you live out of dividend, you calculate very precisely how much shares you have and what it gives you. So before you start doing that, before you go to investor, before you talk about your offer, think about this equation, right? How much your company needs to be better if you have an investor, because you're losing part of the equity of the company you have. All right. Secondly, the second question is whether investor needs you, because it also has to be matched between you and an investor. So you have to ask yourself whether investor needs you. So the major question you should ask yourself, and people tend to forget it, that the company or idea needs to be fundable. There's a great English word. There's no such word in Polish, so sorry for if there is an interpreter. No, there is not. So we don't have to translate it into any Slavic languages. So the idea is fundable. Not every idea is fundable. Not every profitable company is fundable. And let me explain you now which companies are fundable and which are not. Fundable companies are scalable. Scalable is a sophisticated word for huge. Sophisticated word for huge. So the key question is, can we do? So the key question is that Google phrase: not 10% more, but 10 times more. So fundable company are those who can be better not by 10% more by the money given by the investor, but 10 times more. So the scale can boost significantly in a relatively short period of time. Short period is 5 to 7 years, really. Company needs to have a great team. The best talent on the market is available. All right, so I'll stay here, all right? So you need to have the best talents available. Sorry, you need to have the best talents available on the market to develop the team. And the earlier you invest, on the earlier stage we invest, we usually do a pre-revenue rounds and first revenue rounds, the more important team is, because the product will change over years. So you invest in people who are able to adjust their product to the major vision, not to the people who are able to deliver the business plan written in the year 1, because in the year number 3 it will be totally different than you assumed. And you have to be ready to you have to be ready to adjust. You have to be ready to react. You have to be ready to react to the market, which is very much changing, because technology is changing, and most of the companies are not creating technology. We have to obey to the changes that are being done by a bigger players, right? So and of course the third, outstanding product, but it's not the first point. It's not the first point. Product, it's not the first point. Of course, we're talking about early stage. We are not talking about the companies which are at the growth stage when they have product market fit. It's not the issue. But if you are at the early stage, the market, the team, and the scalability is the most important thing. Okay, so if you have the match, then you think, I'm able to give away part of my company, and I think my company is suitable for VC funding. If you have the match, please think about looking for an investor process as the sale and marketing process. Most of the great startups have very well described their sales and marketing process, and you do it really well. You have people who are doing that. But when you approach the investors, you start to, I'm sorry to say that, you start to suck. I mean, you forget about what this is really about. So my suggestion is, think about attracting investor to your company as a sales process. And of course, you are all familiar with the two terms, two phrases, inbound versus outbound. Inbound is the greatest possible situation, because one day you wake up and the partner in a very good VC firm is calling you, listen man, I've been watching your company, I'd like to meet you. We think there is a match, maybe we could invest in your company. This is your dream situation. You are not asking anyone to do it. People coming to you, like in inbound. If you're running SaaS company, you always know that inbound is great. People are coming to you, and much more easier to convert them than if you're outbound, and then of course the process is much more longer. And of course, it's a fantastic situation. It's probably pretty rarely occurs, but still, what to do to get such kind of inbound calls and inbound emails from funds? You need to let yourself to be noticed. And one of the reasons you should attend such conferences, you need to attend all these startup events and stuff like that, is to be noticed. Funds are seeking for a best investment. Funds managers, people were telling that at the end of the panel, fund managers are so scared about wrong choices. We understand that only best investment will give us the return. So we seek for the companies who are distinguishable. We think for the companies who are noticeable. And that's why you need to be in such places. Get yourself, simply have to be noticed. You have to be noticed. Let people to notice you, all right? If you have the outbound, and of course, our company is raising money, and even us raising money, we always do outbound. You have to understand the market, the VCs, how it works. We don't have time right now to do it, but remember that the fund is usually a special purpose vehicle. It's usually for 8 to 10 years, and it invests only for 3 or 4 first years of its time. So you have to understand whether the fund still invests, whether it's still I know it was still an investment process. You have to get in touch, and you have to prepare your documents, all right? And you should carefully choose the fund you seek for. Funds specialize, and you have to think of the fund that they specialize. And you should avoid at all cost cold calling. So get intros, get introductions. That's why you need people like that. That's why you need network to get to introduce. I never invest in the company which was from the cold calling. It's always introduction from somebody I know, from somebody I trust. Few words about NDAs. Do not expect us to sign them. We don't have the time to discuss it, but of course, if you want, I'm open after that to discuss why we do not, or most of the VCs never sign NDAs. And the documents, of course, we are running out of time. So I need 2 more minutes, please, right? So there's a document called pitch deck. Everybody's asking about pitch deck, which is a simple presentation, which is a clever way for calling a presentation of your company, presenting what's your offer, what you do, what's your team, and how much and what do you expect to get. Then should be probably many documents, like 1-pager for cold calling, a pitch deck for people who are more interested, and detailed documents for people who are really interested in your companies. But don't sell them all from the first email, because those VC guys, these are relatively small companies, and they don't have the time to read documents for everyone. And you should create your own virtual data room. This is very complex. For those of you who are interested in virtual data room, how to do this, and what should be included, there will be my name at the end of the presentation. Send me an email, or I post a slide on Medium, or post on Medium, showing you how in my opinion, ideal VDR for investors should look like, all right? So the most important thing when you deal with this, you have to force us to meet you. Meeting increases your chances by 10 times. If you don't meet with VC, you never invest, right? And this is my last slide. Last but not least, investor is not a goal, it's a tool to reach a goal. Your goal is to build a fantastic company that your customers will love, people will love to pay, and maybe somebody will buy it, or you stay in the company forever if you're happy with this. But investor is a tool for that, not a goal. So don't focus on finding an investor, or at least do not forget that this is just a tool for your major goal. These successful companies always remember that. Thank you very much. If you have any questions still, probably, yeah, there's a time for question or two. This is my email address if you are interested in contacting me, especially about VDR. We didn't have time to talk about it today, and I hope you enjoyed it, and I'm more than happy to answer questions. Do we have time for questions? No, we don't have time for questions. Lucky me. So you all love it. Thank you.
Many, many thanks.